Guangling was the young master of the declining sect. The sect was occupied by the ice spirit phantom bird and entrusted to Qiandaoliu by his grandfather Ling Bingdouluo. Later, in the final battle of Jialing Pass, he exploded and died. After being saved by his own deity, he was sent to a different world to enhance his soul power and return to the fate of himself and others that he had changed before. Chapter 1. The Pain of Backfire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pope Bibidon was forced by the worshippers to return to the papal hall. Guangling said, "Is it the great cause of unification? Do you think we are just or evil?" Qinghuan replied, "Lao Wu, you should know that if we are united for a long time, we will be divided, and if we are divided for a long time, we will be united. This is a natural law of historical development. If the martial soul empire does not achieve unity, other countries will also achieve unity in the future. At the same time, there is no absolute evil or absolute justice, but our stance is different." Guangling turned to Qinghuan and said, "I understand." After finishing speaking, Guangling turned back and thought about how Haotian's sect would hurt her. She unconsciously touched her left eye and thought that my soul skills would be interrupted by Haotian's sect. It was estimated that she would feel uncomfortable soon. Haotian's sect, I have recorded this account, and Guangling frowned unconsciously. Qinghuan saw Guangling's movements on the other side of the golden crocodile and said, "Lao Wu, you must not be playful or reckless on the battlefield. If Lao Si and I hadn't arrived in time, you might have already." Xiong Lion said, "Lao Wu, you can play as much as you want normally, but it depends on the situation. We are also afraid of you getting hurt." Guangling said impatiently, "I understand. I understand." The Qinghuan lion, seeing the attitude of Guangling, also became accustomed to it. After all, Guangling was their favorite and the youngest among the seven. In addition, his soul skill was just broken and his eyes were backfired. It is estimated that he will be backfired again soon. After all, this child has not been so aggrieved for a long time, and his temper is quite normal. However, they are worried that Guangling will be backfired by the martial soul in the future. Jean Crocodile first spoke up and said, "Xiao Wu, have you been okay with your martial soul's backlash in recent years?" Guangling heard a question mark on her face and thought for a moment before saying, "Second brother, I haven't been backlash in recent years. Why do you ask if it's okay? You just want me to backlash so much. Second brother, why are you so calm? You cursed me." Guangling said slightly angrily. Qinghuan smiled and said, "Xiao Wu, second brother is also worried about you. Don't be angry." Guangling turned her head and let out a proud snort. Seeing this scene, Xiao Wu laughed heartily and said, "Second brother, you were actually told by Xiao Wu, ha ha ha." Qianjun immediately covered Xiao Wu's mouth and said to Jean Crocodile and Guangling, "Ha ha ha, you haven't heard anything from second brother and fifth brother, have you?" Guangling angrily rushed to the scene and said, "Xiao Wu, even if I am younger than you but my strength is higher than you, can still be called by you. Call him fifth brother." He then held a bow in his hand and prepared to shoot out. Demon Subduing immediately said, "Brother Wu, I was wrong. Good brother Wu, handsome brother Wu, forgive me." Jean Crocodile, who had originally wanted to get angry, laughed at this scene. Qian Jun rubbed his forehead with his hand and smiled, while Qinghuan and the male lion doted on Guangling. When Guangling retrieved his martial soul, his eyes suddenly hurt. Guangling immediately covered his eyes, and his left arm also hurt. His body became cold, and the surroundings began to freeze. When the demon subdued him, he immediately held on to Guangling, and the others rushed forward. The ground slowly began to freeze, and the entire hall was frozen. Qinghuan saw that she was panicked and immediately delivered soul power to Guangling. Qinghuan said, "Xiao Wu, you need to hold on, you need to hold on." Guangling heard Qinghuan's voice and looked up to see Qinghuan looking at herself in a panic, then at others who were all calling her. Guangling said, "Third brother," and then fainted in front of her. Jean Crocodile was frightened and said, "Hurry up, take Xiao Wu back to his room. Hurry up." Qing Luan took him straight out and took him to the light feather hall. He placed him on the bed and covered himself with a blanket, and invited a doctor. Qing Luan said, "Do you know what's wrong with him?" He subdued the demon and said, "It's the old man. Hurry up." The doctor looked at the light feather on the bed and said, "The 5 sacrifices are because there hasn't been any backlash in recent years. Recently, the use of soul skills has been interrupted, and coupled with the instability of the 5 sacrifices emotions, the higher the soul power, the less backlash will occur. As long as it happens, it will be very painful. I hope the 5 sacrifices are not affected. Being able to hold on, we can only continue to transport soul power and wrest control." Qinghuan and his companions heard this and sent the physician out. Qinghuan looked at the light feather on the bed and said to the male lion, "You should transport soul power to Xiao Wu every hour." The male lion nodded, and Qinghuan and Jean Crocodile went out. As soon as they left, Qinghuan said, "Now Qianjun has been seriously injured by Tang Umbrella's hidden weapon, and the light feather has been devoured by the martial soul. For the current plan, we can only defend Jialing Pass." Jean Crocodile nodded in agreement. Qinghuan turned to look at the room, and Jean Crocodile saw and said, "Qinghuan, don't worry too much about Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu used to be able to hold on, and now he can also hold on. We need to trust Xiao Wu." Qinghuan didn't speak, just watched quietly. Thinking of the scene of Guangling half kneeling on the battlefield, covering his eyes in pain, he felt very guilty and felt that he was not strong enough. Qinghuan spoke up and said, "Second brother, can I be strong enough to protect Xiao Wu?" Jean Crocodile looked at Qinghuan, who was trapped in self-blame and said, "Third, don't blame yourself either. This is something we didn't expect. We are actually very strong, just not the strongest. Now we are both level 97 and level 98 Qiandaoliu, and it is even harder to level up than to heaven. There are very few people on the mainland who can hurt us, so don't have too much psychological pressure." Qinghuan didn't say anything, just watched quietly. Chapter 2. Memories. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It had been several days since Guangling woke up in the Guangling hall, and the male lion had been by his side. When Guangling got up, he saw the male lion sleeping soundly in a chair. Guangling sat up, looked around, and then lifted the blanket to get out of bed. The male lion got up and looked over when he heard the commotion, excitedly saying, "Guangling, you're up. Do you know you've been sleeping for a long time?" Guangling didn't say anything and kept looking at the male lion. The lion said, "What are you looking at me for? Is there anything on my face?" Guangling said, "No, it's just fourth brother." "Where's third brother?" The lion said, "Third brother, he's probably practicing now. If you want to find him, I'll go help you call him." Guangling said, "Forget it. If he's practicing, don't disturb him anymore. Fourth brother, you're tired too. Go rest and I'll walk around alone." The lion said, "Okay, don't go far, it's just right. If there's anything, call me." Guangling nodded and watched as the lion went out. After the lion left, Guangling walked step by step to the door. His eyes were empty as he looked at the sky. He didn't know why it was so uncomfortable, whether it was in his body or in his heart. He lowered his head and looked at his left hand, the frozen hand. He saw that the bracelet had cracks, and he sneered, thinking to himself that this was fate. "Lingxu, here is this bracelet for you. You are a born martial soul that can suppress your backlash. Grandpa's deadline is approaching, and this bracelet should be worn on your body at any time to save your life in critical moments. If the bracelet breaks, it proves that you will have a disaster if you hit it." After thinking about it, Guangling looked up at the sky with an incomprehensible gaze and murmured, "Grandpa, will I see you soon?" He smiled sadly. Ling's sect, let him slowly forget along with the river of history. That sect is no longer here, and I, the young master, am also a joke. Guangling murmured, and he suddenly laughed, his smile very penetrating. Guangling is the young master of the Ice Ling sect. This sect is very close to the glacier and receives protection from the Ice Ling God. However, when the Ice Ling God is closed, a nearly million-year-old ice spirit illusionary bird occupies it. Guangling's grandfather is the strongest in the sect, nearly 98-level peerless Doluo, but he cannot defeat it. He can only escape with Guangling and hand it over to his friend Qiandaoliu. He instructed, "This is my descendant, and my end is coming. If I entrust him to you, he will surely be loyal to the angel family." Guangling also remembered his grandfather's instructions to be loyal to the angel family. Guangling jumped up and stood on the eaves, looking into the distance. It was in the direction of Qinghuan Hall, and a light rain began to fall in the sky. It seemed to understand Guangling's mood, getting heavier and heavier, but approaching Guangling, it became ice debris. After watching for a while, Guangling turned around and jumped down. As he stepped on the ground, the water on the ground froze, and he walked back into the room step by step, leaving behind pieces of ice where he stepped, only hearing the sound of the door closing. At a nearby corner, I saw a figure who slowly came out. It was Qinghuan, murmuring the name of Guangling. Guangling told them the secret of the bracelet, and Qinghuan's eyes turned red. He was afraid that Guangling would leave him, so he looked at it for a while before leaving. Guangling went to the room, picked up the pastry on the table, ate it for a while, adjusted her mood, and then went to bed to sleep. After all, this weather is very suitable for sleeping. Qinghuan slowly returned to Qinghuan Hall, slowly pushed open the door, and a brilliant blue bird flew onto his shoulder. Qinghuan touched it with his hand and walked in. Qinghuan said, "Qingqing, Xiao Wu is not in a good mood lately. You can go and accompany him some day. You make him happy." The blue bird heard Jiujiu's screams, but quickly ran away, afraid that Qinghuan would drag him over now. It is estimated that Qingqing knows that he can't live tomorrow in Guangling's hands. Instantly recalling the scene of being touched, my body still trembled. Chapter 3. The Departure of the Great Offering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Guangling slowly walked out of the Guangling Hall. After all, he had just gotten up to wash up and was still feeling a bit sleepy. He slowly arrived at the main hall. "Xiao Wu, you're here. Do you feel better now?" Guangling said as she walked to her position. "It's much better, but the bracelet has cracked a bit, feeling like something big is happening." After hearing this, Jean Crocodile fell silent for a while and said, "Xiao Wu, don't think too much. The situation is critical now, and anything can happen. Now we can only be more vigilant and prepare everything before the young master comes." The other 5 people stood up and left. Clench your fist in front of your chest and say, "Yes." As soon as they sat down, they had a premonition that the consecration order was shattered. They fell silent, knowing what the consecration order represented. Guangling gritted his teeth and slowly opened his mouth, saying, "Is it the great offering? It's the big brother who he sacrificed. Right?" Guangling spoke intermittently, knowing that he couldn't accept this fact. After all, he was a group pet of the Elders' Hall, and the worshippers were very fond of him. He said with a hint of tears, "Xiao Wu, this is a result that we all know. In this critical situation, you need to stay calm and forget the instructions given by your elder brother." Jean Crocodile said slowly. He knew Xiao Wu couldn't bear it. After all, he also couldn't bear it. After all, he had been together for so many years and was very heartbroken. But in this situation, for the sake of Qianjia industry, he must be absolutely calm. "Brothers, we must guard Jialing Pass and the young master well as instructed by our elder brother. The young master has now become a god, which is very powerful for the battle situation. You should also return to your respective temples to practice," Jean Crocodile said, turning his back. He couldn't help but slowly shed tears. Others couldn't say anything when they saw the situation, so they went out. As Guangling approached Guangling Hall, the voice of Xiao Wu came from behind, and Guangling turned to Qinghuan. He slowly spoke up and said, "Third brother, why are you here?" Qinghuan looked at Guangling with red eyes and touched his head, saying, "Third brother knows you're not happy lately, so he came specifically to accompany you." Guangling looked at Qinghuan with a slight smile and said, "Third brother, will you always be with me?" Qinghuan looked at it and said with a smile, "Xiao Wu, are you a little fool? We are all level 97 Dolua and can live for hundreds of years. I can accompany you for a long, long time. Don't think too much. After the war, I'll accompany you to explore the entire Dolua continent, okay?" Guangluan said. "Third brother, are we still alive after the big battle? Tang Umbrella's hidden weapons are so powerful that they can even harm Qianjun and subdue demons. Do we also know how to do that?" Guangling said in silence. Qinghuan. "Xiao Wu, I will protect you and won't let you get hurt. We need to be careful in the final battle, and you must not be playful." Guangling. "I understand. I understand. You're here to comfort me, aren't you? How did you teach me a lesson? It's really true." Qinghuan smiled and said, "All right, look what I've brought." After finishing speaking, he put his arm behind him in front of Guangling. Guangling said, "Wow, Qingqing, it's been a long time since we last saw each other. Do you think I haven't seen you?" Qingsa bird saw Guangling and looked as if she was dying. It was forcibly pulled over by its owner to make Xiaowu happy. "Third brother, you really want to give him to me to play for a few days," said Guangling, grabbing the blue bird and tugging its wings, looking very happy. But Qinghuan looked at Guangling with a spoiled face. Qinghuan said, "5, it's late, here you are." Then he saw Qinghuan take out the tomatoes on sticks. Guangling was very happy to see that. "The third brother understands me, and he knows I haven't eaten for a long time, so he bought them specially." Qinghuan. "Well, go to practice, and the third brother will see you later." After hearing this, Guangling happily entered the Guangling Hall, and Qinghuan watched Guangling hop back. Chapter 4. The Arrival of Angels and Gods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After returning to her room, Guangling sat on a chair and looked at the bird on the table. Curiously, she tugged at the bird's wings and feathers. At this moment, Qingqing lay on the table with an unattainable expression, tears in pain, hating the owner's injustice towards her and hoping that the owner could save her from danger. Suddenly, Guangling's stomach rang uncontrollably, and it was only then that he remembered that he had not had breakfast yet, as it was already noon. And when Qing heard it, he immediately got up and kicked his legs to run. Why not fly? "Oh, so my wings are bald." Guangling suddenly turned his head and saw that Qingqing was drooling, with a mouthful of water flowing. Unable to bear to look directly at Qingqing, his face immediately turned black when he saw Guangling like this. He now only begged his master to come and save him quickly. "Bang bang, Guangling. Who's bothering me? I'm just getting ready to eat." Guangling opened the door and saw Qinghuan. Qinghuan took the rice and said, "How come I didn't know you could cook? Besides, where are your ingredients? Look at how good the third brother is to you when I brought your food." Guangling. "Let's not worry about the ingredients for now. Anyway, I'm here to eat. I'm starving to death." Guangling took his own food and ran to the table, eating it in big gulps. Qinghuan walked in and saw Qingqing, who couldn't be loved, probably understood. He reached out and touched Guangling's head, saying, "Old Wu, I've already told you not to pluck bird feathers." Upon hearing this, Qingqing looked excitedly at his master. Qinghuan said, "Dirty, not clean." Upon hearing this, Qingqing immediately felt that she had no love. Guangling remained silent and kept cooking, ignoring it. Suddenly, the door rang with a bang. Qinghuan said, "Enter." Soldier. 3 offerings, 5 offerings, young master. The angel god has returned, please go to the main hall. Qingluan said, I understand. We will go immediately. The soldier left. Guangling raised her head and said, young master is back. Qingluan nodded and said, hurry up, we need to leave. Guangling immediately took a bite. Guangling, cough 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 cough. Qingluan immediately handed over the water and said, Old 5, slow down. After receiving it, Guangling quickly drank it. Guangling. Let's go. When the two of them arrived at the main hall, they saw Jean Crocodile and Qian Renxue. They walked to their positions and soon everyone arrived. Qian Renxue said, now I have become an angel god, but Tang Umbrella still hinders us. He can do it, but his hidden weapons are really strong, we have never encountered them before. Demon Slaying said, yes, his hidden weapons are very strange, they can even damage the Qiandaoliu. I feel like I haven't heard of this thing before. It seems to have appeared out of thin air, not something from our continent. Qian Renxue said, not only can damage the Qiandaoliu, some hidden weapons can even harm the spirit. After speaking, he touched his chest. Guangling said, it seems that this hidden weapon has to be guarded against. It's so powerful. After speaking, he frowned. Qian Renxue said, yes, grandpas. These hidden weapons will definitely be widely used on the battlefield in the future. You must be very careful and protect yourself. I don't want to lose you again. The more she said, the more excited she became, and even cried. Jean Crocodile. Miss, don't be sad. The great offering has completed his mission. For him, everything is worth it for you, Mississippi. We will also protect you. Qian Renxue looked up at her grandparents with tears in her eyes and said, we all want to come back alive. Chapter 5. Tranquility Before Darkness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qian Renxue said, grandfathers, Tang Umbrella is probably about to become a god, and Bibi Dong is also expected to achieve the position of Rakshasa God soon. This situation is very beneficial for us. Let's also improve our cultivation before the big battle and prepare for the final battle. After listening to this, Jean Crocodile said to others, everyone listen to the young master's instructions and start practicing in their respective rooms now. After the meeting, Guangling slowly walked out of the hall and muttered to Qingluan beside him, I want to practice again. I don't want to practice at all, I want to go out and play. Qingluan said, Guangling can't be too playful. To prepare for a big battle, after the battle is over, the third brother will take you out to play. Guangling muttered, I know, long-winded. Guangling slowly arrived at his Guangling hall and sat at the table, taking off the bracelet on his left hand and examining it. He thought to himself, what would happen if his backlash suddenly appeared during the war? Then try not to use your fifth soul skill. After thinking about it, Guangling sat on the bed and began practicing. After about a day, Guangling heard banging sounds. Guangling said, come in. Qingluan carried delicious food and drinks before walking in. Guangling looked at Qingluan and said, Big Qingyao, don't you need to practice? Qingluan said, practice belongs to cultivation, but you still need to eat a meal and pay attention to your body. Guangling, you need to practice well recently and strive to break through level 97. Guangling looked at Qingluan and said, it's fast. I feel like I should be able to break through soon. Third brother, don't you praise me. Qingluan smiled and touched Guangling's head, saying, when you truly break through level 97, I'll praise you again. Guangling spat out her tongue at Qingluan and said, can you accompany me back to the sect after the big battle? Now think about it, the sect is still occupied by other soul beasts, and I, the young master, can't do anything. Qingluan touched Guangling's head and said, after the big battle is over, third brother will accompany you back. Not only third brother, but also others will accompany you. Guangling looked at Qingluan and said, yes, we are so powerful, we will definitely win at that time. Guangling walked down from the bed and opened the window. He turned his head to Qinghuan and said, "Why is the sky so gloomy? There is always a sense of ominous premonition. Third brother, is this the tranquility before the darkness?" Qinghuan said, "Little five, don't think too much. It's time to improve your soul power now. Don't be distracted by these things, and don't be afraid. Third brother will always protect you." Guangling looked at Qinghuan and then at the sky outside the window. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. Slowly, it started raining, and the cold air came straight in. Qinghuan immediately closed the window and said to Guangling, "It's raining now and it's a bit cold. Put on more clothes and don't catch a cold." Guangling looked at Qinghuan with a bewildered expression and said, "But I'm an ice soul master. How could I possibly be afraid of the cold?" Qinghuan just smiled and said, "Isn't that afraid? After all, your body temperature has always been cold." Qinghuan said so on the surface, but his heart was thinking when he could warm up your ice. Guangling finished eating and went to bed to practice, while Qinghuan continued to practice beside him. After all, Guangling has reached the peak of level 97, while Qinghuan has been promoted to level 98 a few days ago. But due to the influence of backlash, Guangling has been unable to break through 97. Suddenly, the cold air around him filled the air, and ice began to form all around him. Qinghuan was disturbed by the cold air and opened her eyes. He looked at the source of the air conditioning and found it to be Guangling. He looked at Guangling, frowning in pain. He immediately shouted, "Guangling, wake up." He immediately delivered soul power to Guangling. Come and help him suppress his backlash, break through and upgrade. Chapter 6. Preparation before war. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qinghuan hurriedly shouted to the outside, "Hurry up, hurry up." The soldier rushed in panic and knelt down on one knee, saying, "What are the orders for the 3 offerings?" Qinghuan said, "Call the other offerings over immediately." The soldier said, "Yes," and hurriedly left. Soon, all the other offerings, including Lingxu, arrived at the Guangling hall. As soon as the lion arrived and pushed the door open, he shouted, "What's wrong with third brother?" Qinghuan panicked and said to them, "Guangling has broken through level 97 and is preparing to charge to level 98, but is facing backlash. Come and help quickly." The others didn't say much and quickly delivered soul power to Guangling. Slowly, Guangling's furrowed brow eased, and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Guangling's expression gradually calmed down. Qinghuan patted Guangling and called out softly, "Xiao Wu, Xiao Wu." Guangling opened her eyes and said, "What's wrong with me?" Qinghuan said, "It's okay, as long as you're okay." Guangling looked at them with a bewildered expression. The golden crocodile spoke first and said, "Xiao Wu, take a look at your level." Guangling slowly extended his hand and a huge bow appeared, very gorgeous. "Guangling. I actually broke through 97 and reached level 98. Everyone else was happy for Guangling. Qinghuan smiled and patted the lion's shoulder, saying, "Fourth, you need to work hard." The lion said defiantly, "Third brother, I'm also at level 98. The demon subdued and said incredulously, "You all broke through." "Oh, the weakest one is still me." Jean Crocodile said, subduing the demon, "You also need to practice well and prepare for the big battle." Suddenly, a blue beam of light appeared in the sky, piercing into the clouds. Qiandaoliu suddenly shouted, "Grandpa, look at that sky." The golden crocodile looked slowly and said, "I estimate that the sugar umbrella has already opened its 9th exam. This is a symbol of offering sacrifices. It is estimated that the sea god Dolua is about to sacrifice, and we need to prepare in advance. The sea god is about to succeed." Guangling looked at the sky and whispered, "Is the sea god? Why do their respective gods help them, but my own gods cannot help us?" Qinghuan thought that Guangling wanted to make a big sacrifice and said, "Guangling, don't think too much. The war is about to start. Don't be distracted, don't be playful, and improve yourself on your existing strength. He will definitely see you. Guangling slowly looked up and said, can he really see me? But. He slowly closed his mouth. Qinghuan touched Guangling's head and said, now let's get things right in front of us. Guangling said, I understand. Isn't this just a disguised cultivation? It's really true. Golden crocodile. It's getting late, everyone go back and rest. Continue practicing tomorrow. Everyone, yes. Guangling watched as they walked out of his own Guangling hall. He sat in a chair, his hand supporting his head, and fell asleep for some time. In my dream. Guangling said, where is this? It hurts so much. Why is it eating back again? Guangling looked up and said, what is this? Why is there so much blood? This is the battlefield, Jialing Pass. Guangling stood up and walked forward. He saw Qianjun subduing the demon and fighting against Ling Bingdouluo. He saw the lion and Qinghuan fighting against Shirlake and other people. Qinghuan saw Guangling shouting in the distance, Old 5, don't be playful. Guangling looked at Qinghuan and ran towards him, saying, third brother, why, it's clear that war hasn't started yet. Why? Suddenly, Ma Hongjuan's attack came over, and Guangling immediately reacted and dodged sideways. Chapter 7. Rakshasa God. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In my dream. Ma Hongjun. Ling Bingdouluo, why are you still distracted on the battlefield? I thought the consciousness of being titled Douluo was very good, but I didn't expect it. TSK. Guangling. What qualifications do you have to say about me? I am even younger than you when I became a titled Douluo. What are you proud of? Ma Hongjun. You are really arrogant. The 8th soul skill, the Phoenix heart-eating chain, Guangling smiled and said, it's interesting. Let me play with you and let you see the difference between you and the 98th level titled Douluo. The 8th soul skill, endless. Fatty, be careful, the two forces collided, but Guangling's soul skill was even stronger, and Ma Hongjun flew out. Guangling didn't glance at his opponent. He looked at Qinghuan. Qinghuan and Xiaowu Daimu Bai fought each other, but Qinghuan still had the upper hand. Suddenly, Xiaowu took out something he didn't know. Guangling shouted, Big Qingniao, be careful. Xiaowu. Peacock feather, open, Qinghuan didn't react. He turned his head and flew countless small flying needles towards Qinghuan. Qinghuan opened his defense but still hit it. Qinghuan. Poisonous on the needle. Qinghuan propped up his body and immediately exercised his soul power. Suddenly, Xiaowu flashed up to Qinghuan. Xiaowu. Strike 8 section throw. Guangling saw him collapse, and tears streamed down in an instant. He watched as Xiaowu threw Qinghuan into disarray. The ice wings behind Guangling appeared and rushed towards Qinghuan frantically. Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing saw that Guangling was stopped. Blue eyes instantly turned red. If you don't want to die, get up. Guangling saw that they didn't want to make way for her. In an instant, Guangling was angry and roared, get out of my way. A powerful soul power erupted from Guangling's body, and the two of them flew out, forming ice cones around them. Everyone else was shocked. The lion Qianjun subdued the demon and looked at Guangling, knowing that Guangling was angry. Guangling flew to Qinghuan's side, but Qinghuan was no longer in the same state. Guangling gently caressed Qinghuan's face, tears streaming down her cheeks, and muttered, this is impossible. Third brother, didn't you promise me? You can't go back. You can't. The cold air filled Guangling's side, and his soul power instantly erupted, sending Xiaowuzhen flying out. Guangling trembled for a moment, then woke up and slowly touched his face. Tears welled up as he said, why, this dream is so real, it's not true, is it? Guangling calmed down for a moment and comforted himself. We are so powerful, so there shouldn't be anything wrong with us, right? When Wei knocked on the door and said, 5 offerings, the angel god has called you to the main hall. It's urgent. Guangling said, I understand. You go down. Guangling got up and walked out to the main hall. As soon as he entered, he saw Bibi Dong. Guangling said with disgust in her eyes, why are you here? Didn't you go back? Bibi Dong said, 5 offerings really care about me. But what can you do? You can't beat me now. Lingxu saw and said, Grandpa 5, she's already the Rakshasa God. The current situation is in our favor. Guangling said, Tisk, it's you. After mocking Bibi Dong, Guangling looked at Jean Crocodile and said, Second brother, I'm going out for a while recently. Jean Crocodile frowned and looked at Guangling, Old 5, this is a critical moment, don't be too playful. Ling, second brother, this time it's not for fun. My martial soul is very special. There is a place in my sect where I can make a qualitative leap in my martial soul. Jean Crocodile. A qualitative leap. Your martial soul is already very good. Guangling. No, it's not the best. Our direct lineage of the Ice Ling sect is indeed the Light Ling Ice Bow, but there is one place that can help my martial soul become the Light Ling Divine Bow. Qing Luan. What is that? We have never heard of you before. Guangling said, I haven't actually told you before. We believe in the Ice God, who has always been protected by him. However, when the god was in seclusion, a million-year soul beast took over. We actually sought help from the Haotian sect, but his tears flowed down. Others knew he hated the Haotian sect, but they didn't know the reason. They only knew that Guangling was the young master of the declining sect. Qingluan patted Guangling's shoulder, and Guangling wiped her tears and said, the Guangling Ice Bow is a legend in our sect, passed down from the sect master to the next generation. According to what I know, the power of the Guangling God Bow is very strong. Chang is a divine weapon. Chapter 8. Enhancement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Others. Divine Artifact. Guangling. Yes, second brother wants me to go. I will definitely come back before the big war. Golden Crocodile. Hey, go. We can't stop you, but I know there will be danger when you go. You must come back alive. Guangling. I know, so I will go now. Goodbye. The others watched Guangling go out, and the golden alligator slowly said. The 5th one has finally grown up. Qingluan. Yes, I only hope he will come back alive. Bibi Dong looked at the fool's roast beside him. You worshippers are really strange, he is more than 90 years old. Qingluan glared at her and said. Pope, you should know what to say and what not to say. After a day's journey, Guangling arrived at the far north. He shielded his soul power and slowly arrived at the entrance of the sect. He looked up, then closed his eyes and turned his head and walked away. He came to the vicinity of the glacier based on his memory and swam down the river. He knew a quick way to evolve his martial soul, but it would ruin his life. Guangling smiled, thinking about me for a long time. Even if I use this method, I still have a long time, for the sake of my elder brother and for the sake of not happening again in my dreams. Suddenly, his gaze became sharp, it was Ice Core Lotus. He slowly opened his left eye, still a top-notch fairy grass. Guangling walked over and was instantly knocked out by an energy when his hand touched it. Guangling said, TSK, it doesn't seem easy to pick. I heard you need fresh blood to water the flowers before you can pick them. Guangling's left hand transformed into an arrow, piercing his right palm. The blood slowly fell and the snow turned red. Guangling raised her hand and dropped the blood onto the flowers. Guangling thought to herself, why hasn't it bloomed yet? Isn't it enough? Guangling stabbed deeply on his right wrist again, and a large amount of blood flowed down. It dripped onto the pure white petals and slowly bloomed. He quickly used his soul power to pick him down, jumped onto the tree, tore off his clothes, and simply bandaged it before starting to absorb the fairy grass. Guangling opened his eyes again and it was already evening. He looked up at the aurora and was extremely happy. It was something he hadn't seen in a long time. With a rustling voice, Guangling immediately turned her head and shouted, "Who is there? Come out to me." The stranger said, "Human, this is not where you should come. Hurry up and leave." It slowly walked out. Guangling said, "Are you the nine-tailed ice fox? I am the young master of the Ice Ling sect and want to improve my martial soul." Nine-tailed ice fox said, "Are you the person I need to wait for? Then you come with me. The Lord has chosen you." Guangling. "Lord? Who is it?" Nine-tailed ice fox. "It's nothing, come on. If you want to improve, you have to pass my level, you should know." Guangling. "I know, and I have a lifespan of 100 years. Nine-tailed ice fox. Yes. Guangling. Then come on. Please hurry up, I have some urgent matters." Jialing Ice Fox smiled and said, "Oh. Is that right? Then you need to be careful." The sixth soul skill, Ice Sakura Wind Breath. Guangling immediately reacted and shouted, "The Frozen Realm." He quickly flew into the air and charged up with the tremendous energy of Extreme Feather Light, shooting it out. The nine-tailed ice fox smiled and said, "You are indeed the person chosen by the adults, but you are still not strong enough." It quickly came to Guangling, closed its eyes, and immediately opened, saying, "Meng Mei, remember." Its eyes relaxed as it looked at Guangling, and it quickly fell down. It immediately grabbed Guangling with its tail and laughed loudly, asking me to see if the person chosen by the adults could come out of their fear. Chapter 9. Heart Knots. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guangling slowly opened his eyes. He looked up and saw that it was the Ice Ling sect. He chuckled to himself, knowing that in his memory, he was the scariest and most fearful memory. He raised his hand to summon the Light Feather Ice Bow, slowly walked in, pushed open the door, and Little Light Feather said, "Grandpa, why do I always miss?" Little Light Feather threw the bow out of her hand. Guangling saw this scene and looked at it incredulously. He knew it was something he had experienced, but tears couldn't stop flowing out. He reached out his hand to grasp everything and murmured, "Grandpa, Father, I finally see you all again." Guangling watched as his grandfather touched his own head when he was a child, and his father repeatedly talked about archery skills. He just watched quietly. Suddenly, the screen turned and Guangling suddenly turned his head. His eyes were filled with fear and he murmured, "That's it, that's the ice spirit phantom bird." Guangling instinctively retreated, and suddenly a person rushed over from Guangling's side. Guangling looked at him and widened his eyes. "Father," Guangling's father shouted to the people behind him, "Go and contact Haotian sect for help." Some immediately sent the message to Haotian sect, while others immediately went to help Guangling's father. Guangling's father saw it and said, "Activate the ice formation." Others said, "Yes." Someone said, "Master, we can't hold on to the formation anymore." Guangling's father said, "Everyone hold on, Haotian sect is coming soon." The ninth soul skill is Lingguan Ice Trace. A servant shouted to Guangling's father, "Master, the people of Haotian sect are coming." The elder of Haotian sect said, "Master of Bingling sect, we are here." Everyone starts the Haotian formation, Haotian 9 techniques. Now they can draw with that soul beast. And Xiao Guangling was in the distance. His father said he wanted him to stay here, and his grandfather was coming back soon after he left. He wanted him to wait, but Xiao Guangling knew that something had happened in the sect and came with him. While everything was normal, suddenly a disciple of the Haotian sect stopped releasing his martial soul, causing the Haotian sect's formation to collapse. The ice spirit illusionary bird saw the flaw and immediately let out a long roar to attack the ice Ling formation. The people of the ice Ling sect were seriously injured, and Guangling's father shouted, "Hurry up, everyone! Hurry up!" Guangling's father knelt on the ground and spat out blood. Just now, the disciple of the Haotian sect came to Guangling's father's face, secretly laughing and slowly laughing wildly. Guangling shouted tears in the distance and rushed towards him. Xiao Guangling also saw his father, crying and running over. Guangling's father looked at Xia Guangling and shouted, "Linger, don't come over." Xia Guangling's eyes were filled with tears as she shouted to her father. At this moment, Guangling had already rushed to his father, and the disciple of Haotian sect held his weapon and martial soul and smashed it at Guangling's father. Guangling immediately blocked his body with a bow, but it penetrated through his body. Now, Guangling's father had exhausted his soul power and could not defend himself. He watched his father die again in front of him, kneeling on the ground and crying uncontrollably. The person saw his father die and looked at Xia Guangling. Just as he was about to take action, Guangling's grandfather came and killed him in an instant. The ice spirit illusionary bird saw the people of Haotian sect leave and turned its gaze to Xiao Guangling and the two of them. Grandpa Guangling looked unhappy and picked up Xiao Guangling before running away. Guangling looked at the dilapidated ice Ling sect and laughed wildly. He murmured, "What a Haotian sect, what an ice spirit illusionary bird." Nine-tailed ice fox slowly appeared and said, "Guangling, this is the most terrifying thing in your heart. We must all face it. Don't let hatred blind your eyes. You must have seen the future." Guangling was puzzled and said, "What future?" Nine-tailed ice fox slowly transformed into a girl and said, "It's that dream. I will predict the future." She smiled, her smile very penetrating. She jumped onto the tree and sat down, watching as Guangling slowly spoke, "Guangling, life, age, illness, and death are all predetermined. You will have a disaster soon, how do you resolve it?" Chapter 10. Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Guangling looked up at her and said, "If you can't avoid me, face it. Although you don't know what it is, you still have to look forward." Jiawei Ice Fox playfully looked at Guangling and sneered, "It's interesting, you're really interesting." Guangling said, "Humph, don't talk to me in that tone. I'm not your toy." Nine-tailed Ice Fox said, "I also want you to become my toy, but adults have chosen you, ha ha ha." Guangling looked at her speechless face and said, "I've passed this. Please help me improve my martial soul." After hearing this, Nine-tailed Ice Fox turned her head and smiled. She slowly spoke, "Don't worry, it's not over yet. Let me show you something good." Slowly, things around her began to change. Nine-tailed Ice Fox. "I want you to see, your future, everything you cherish." Guangling. The future. A strong light flew by, and Guangling instinctively closed her eyes. Nine-tailed Ice Fox. "Open your eyes, I want you to see your future." Guangling opens Qinghuan. Xiao Wu, live well. Guangling watched as Qinghuan fell from a high altitude. Tears fell in an instant, and ice wings were also released. However, a white light flew over and passed through his body. Guangling said, "Is that old man?" He looked at himself holding Qinghuan, and his martial soul erupted with anger. The scene turned, and he saw the golden crocodile self-destruct in order to save the young master. He saw the male lion and himself also self-destruct, and saw the young master's throne shattered. He looked at the young master, such as winter's long sleep at Jialing Pass and who lies stopping Soul Saint. He cried, tears streaming down his face, and murmured, why, we would end up like this. I'm not willing to accept it. Why? Nine-tailed Ice Fox said, there's no reason, this is your ending, it's already destined, and you've dreamt of it before. Guangling said, why, our strength is stronger than theirs. Why? Why, we also work hard to cultivate. Why, this is not fair. I'm not willing to let us fall like this. Nine-tailed ice fox. There are some things that you don't know, but you will know in the future. I will do what the Lord wants, and I will help you in the future. She reached out her hand, and a flower flew towards the light feather, entering its body. She slowly spoke up, "It will save you at a critical moment. I will become the soul ring of your weapon, and your martial soul will merge with me to become the light feather divine bow. Let's see each other in the future." After she finished speaking, a strong light shot out, and the light feather fainted on the ground. Guangling sat up, rubbed her head, slowly looked around, and thought to herself, "Is this a dream? Why is it so real? Sure enough, I'm still too tired. It's already been an hour. Don't waste any more time. Why hasn't the soul beast been found yet? Time is already running out." Guangling finished thinking and got up to head deep into the forest. Guangling arrived at the core of the forest and a long cry alarmed him. Guangling quickly turned around to look at the direction of the sound, his heart pounding wildly, always feeling a bad premonition. He tentatively walked towards the direction of the sound, feeling uneasy every step he took, and he didn't know what he was afraid of. Near the source of the sound, he looked around and jumped onto the tallest tree. Looking at the white distance, he saw his pupils suddenly dilate and murmured, That's the ice spirit phantom bird, but why is it here?